Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you guys for checking me out today. This is episode number 2 on the channel, and episode number 3 if you guys are following my podcast, which I hope you guys are. But informational session. So if you guys don't have your notepads and pen ready, this is one of those sessions where you should have that ready because it's going to be a lot of information, a lot of good information, but information you're going to need to look back on later on so that you can implement it and really make sure that you're using the content to be beneficial to you in your industry and what you're doing and in your sales processes. So again, I'll give you guys some time to do that while I just make sure that I'm good here. But grab a pen and paper and let's get into this. All right, let's see here. All right, well, again, I hope everybody's doing great. So if you got that out, you're ready to go, let's get started. So I want to start off by saying, guys, right now, particularly right now, in today's day, in today's day and age, whatever it is, not even today's day and age, right now, in today's society, in today, worldwide, internationally, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, right, millions of people that are going into sales, telephone sales. They're going into home sales. They're going into working from home, working remotely. So it's a skill right now that is it's an essential skill right now that people need to be concerned about. Right? It's an essential skill that people need to make sure that they are working on it, perfecting it, because you don't know if right now you're not in the remote, if you're not in a remote state right now with your job, you don't know how it'll be in a couple months from now, in a couple weeks from now, in a couple days from now. We don't know how things are going, right? Things are crazy. They're unheard of. So it's important. It is important for us to be going and transforming ourselves to being telephone sales consultants. Right? Because not only is it a growing and not only is it a big transition going on economically and in society, in the business world, but it's something that millions and millions of sales consultants do already, right? So it's an already essential industry that everyone else is transitioning to. So, there's your industries where it's a lot more personable. You got appointments and it's pushed to say, get in front of the customer. And again, we're going to be going over, setting up the appointment and get in front of your customer, but it's important that your skills on the phones are great, and it's important they're at a certain level where you can get that face-to-face time with your customer. But, all right, so today, right, we are going to be going over 5 major things or 5 major areas within telephone sales. Number 1 being prospecting. We will be going over prospecting, right? How to set up an appointment, where to kind of be looking at, how to be going about it, how to start, the initial steps, the foundation, right? Because then we'll go into an actual example after I go over the foundation of that. We'll go into an example of an actual phone call, a typical example, right? A very common one, not too complex, but a very common phone call that you'd probably go through with your prospect. So, and then number 3, we'll be going over confirming your appointments and how important it is to confirm your appointments, because missed appointments for sales consultants right now is the biggest waste of time, right? If there is anything that you can calculate throughout your sales career, or anything that you can calculate, there's a substantial amount of wasted time, it's going to be on missed appointments, showing up to your appointment, getting ready for your appointment, waiting for your appointment, mentally just waiting for your appointment, right? Things like that, having your appointment not show up on you, or having your appointment not be ready for you. So that right there is a big waste of time. So we'll be going over confirming your appointments, and then we'll be going over what inspired this entire thing, cold calling. So we'll be going over after that cold calling and really outbound calls and cold calling customers, how to cold call a customer, what you should do when you cold call a customer, some of the initial things you should say, and the most important things when you're on the phone with that customer. So we'll be going over that. Mind you guys, Dell, the biggest computer technology, whatever you say, company right now, they sell very complex and intellectual computers, and I would say mostly, 70 to 90%, I believe, of their sales come from cold calling. And this is a very successful company. This isn't just somebody saying that's what you should do, I know, right? Because a lot of us salespeople or consultants, when we start off, we hate cold calling. Everybody hates cold calling. And when I was selling and I was actually in the car industry, that was my favorite part, right? That's where I had fun. That's where I got my blood pumping. That's where I got my juices flowing. That's where I got my circuits going. That's where I got my morning going. Cold calling was fun for me. And then the fifth one's gonna be inbound sales, and that's what we're gonna be wrapping it up with. We're gonna be wrapping up with inbound sales. That's gonna be capturing sales response, to advertisements, to Facebook ads, to your social media, to referrals, all of that good stuff, right? Okay, so now that I've laid out the foundation, I hope you guys wrote that down, that way you guys can keep up with where I'm going. I like to let you guys know where I'm going so you guys aren't, wondering what the next steps are and going too far ahead. You guys now know what we're going to be getting into. Let's stay on topic. Let's stay present with what we're talking about, all right? So let's start with prospecting. So we will be starting with prospecting today, right? And prospecting for me, like I said, it's like cold calling, and it's the foundation of cold calling. And it's if you prospect right, your cold calling becomes fun, because then you start talking to qualified prospects, qualified people that aren't giving you the BS, that aren't giving you the runaround, that aren't giving you nothing but smoke screen objections and objections you cannot overcome, and it makes you just feel bad about yourself, right? So prospecting is very, very important, because a lot of you guys that don't like cold calling is because you suck at prospecting and you keep getting bad prospects, and then when you cold call, you get discouraged yourself. You're not talking to anybody that you would actually do business with. So prospecting is very important, so that when you do your cold call, you feel it. You have fun with it. You have knowledgeable information to give, right? Because if you're with a qualified prospect, and since you're a qualified sales consultant, you guys are going to be having a qualified conversation. So now, what are the biggest problems with prospecting, right? What are the biggest problems with prospecting? So I'll give you guys just a couple seconds to really think that over and think about what are your biggest problems with prospecting, and write that down, right? Put that on right there where it's number one, prospecting. Put down right underneath, what it is that you feel are your problems with prospecting. And so now you've written that down, I'm gonna give you what I think are the biggest problems with prospecting, right? So number one is the fear of rejection. So number one biggest problem that I believe that people have with prospecting is the fear of rejection. So have you ever ever been in that position where you want to ask your customer something, you've built a great relationship with him, and you're to a certain point, but he's been telling you, let's say you have your product costs $50, right? And he tells you don't want to pay no more than 20, she tells you don't want to pay no more than 20, and then when it comes down to asking for those $50, you sometimes don't do it because you fear that person, your customer, your prospect's going to say no. It seems very simple, right? But it's just a psychological, conscious thing that we do. Because we're not looking at the value, right? We're not looking at all the benefits. We're not looking at the value that you yourself bring, right? You're not looking at all the time you just spent. You're letting your conscious mind tell you, stop. Don't ask for those $50, because he's been saying all day, she's been saying all day they only want to pay 20. So that simple fear of rejection keeps you from even asking. I'm not saying that fear of rejection keeps you from closing it. Shit, you may close it anyways, right? That may be the customer just loves it, just wants it. I'm not saying you won't close your customer because of the fear of rejection. I'm saying you just won't, right, ask for the business, or you won't, call a customer, or you won't try to cold call a customer just because of the fear of rejection. Just because you don't want to call somebody and have them tell you no. Right? That's number one that I believe. Number two, I believe everyone hates prospecting for the fear of calling people. But first one's fear of rejection. Second one's fear of actually calling people. Right? Because once you get over the fear of rejection, you're like, all right, you know what? If they say no, they say no. Then you start getting on your phone, you're like, oh man, you're just afraid to dial the phone. Right? You're just afraid to make that initial phone call. You're afraid to have to be the person to just bother somebody. Even though you got over the fear of rejection, now you just have the fear of calling somebody. Dialing the phone and just calling. Saying what's up. Right? Now you may say, I'm not fearful of calling, but yet you sit for an hour, 2 hours trying to, okay, this is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm not gonna say. And you spend 2 hours, before you even make your initial phone call, setting yourself up and preparing for 2 hours just to make a phone call. You may think that, but it's really just a fear of calling, right? You're procrastinating it. You're pushing it. You're just saying, you're trying to make everything perfect before you make the call. Get over that fear of calling and just call them. You don't know them. What are they gonna do? Like I said, you got over the fear of rejection. They're gonna say, no, let's just do it. Call them. Just call them. Fear of calling. Get over that fear of calling, right? Any other example that I give you, they're all going to come, and they're all going to come back to one common reason, right? One common reason why the average sales consultant does not like making cold calls or like prospecting is because they're not good at it, right? It's not because the fear of rejection. It's not the fear of calling. It's not really the fear of any of that. It's just they're not good at it. Because for those that love it, for those that love cold calling, for those that love prospecting, they're good at it, right? They can hold a conversation. They can ask the right questions. They can speak with confidence and clarity. They can do all those things. So they're not afraid of rejection. They're not afraid of calling. They're not any of these other excuses that you may make up for yourself. They're not any of those, because if you're just good at it, and you just get the right information, the right knowledge, and you build the right skills, you won't be afraid and you'll love it. You'll find out that that'll be the best thing you want to do. Sitting inside, on the phone, in the AC, bringing customers, making money while you drink your drink and eat your snacks. Right? I feel like that is the best way to work. Just saying. Not out in the sun, not out, which is a good way to do it, right? But out putting business cards everywhere, out knocking on doors. That's a good place to start, but that's not where you want to stay. That's a good place to get things going. That's a good way to get your name out there. That's a good way to get your pipeline going. But that's not where you want to stay, right? Like I said, you want to end up to where you are sitting back, relaxing, in your chair, in your office, and you're just dialing away while people are coming in and people are buying from you, and you're making money, and you feel good, and you come in dressed nice, and you leave dressed nice, right? You come in smelling good, and you leave smelling good. That's what I think is the life that you want to get to, right? And having the right phone skills and having the right confidence and gaining that and taking the time to invest in gaining that skill or building that skill, phone skills and communication and speaking to a customer with confidence and clarity, right? Once you build that, you're going to love it. And you're going to get away from, I hate cold calling and it's the worst thing. And oh my God, I hate that I have to make phone calls every day, right? You're going to end up being like, let's go. That's my money. So let's get you good at it, right? How do you make an appointment? So for starters, you want to set them up. Those are the customers that are gonna actually go through with their appointment. So, if you're asking, how do I set it up? What do you mean? What's a pre-sale thing? What do I send in that email? What do I send in that text? What do I say in that voicemail? Well, what you do is you say this, right? You let them know, hey, I'm your personal consultant, right? From whatever industry you're in. Hey, how you doing, Mr. Mrs. So-and-so? Just wanted to give you a call. This is Kevin the Revelo here. I'm your personal consultant, and I have some very important news that may benefit you. Whenever you have some time, whenever it's most convenient, hey, give me a call back at 512-822-0638. That way I can go over the details and I can give you that information. It would be an injustice to me if I couldn't give you that information. Write that in an email, put that in a note, put that in a letter, fax it over to them, leave them that voicemail, right? Do something like that before you get on the phone call, and set up the time and tell them you're gonna call them. Don't really ask, right? Just send that message. They're gonna be like, oh crap, okay, right? It's almost not an option. And then they have the option to either answer your phone call or not answer your phone call. So you're giving them the option, but you're making it very direct. You're making it feel like they don't have one, right? But when they answer that phone, that is your permission to say, hello, how are you doing? And close them. Right? That's your permission when they answer the phone, because you set it up. They're going to be expecting your phone call. Maybe it's going to be a quick, no, I don't want it, which is okay. You ain't going to waste your time. Or maybe it's going to be a, hey, I did get your message and I'm kind of interested. What do you got? What information you over here to tell? What information do you got? And that's with your permission to go into it, to go for your appointment. So it's extremely important that when you're talking, if you get to this point where you're talking to your customer, your goal when you are on the phone, it is to get an appointment with a qualified prospect, right? It is to set up an appointment with a qualified prospect, to set up a meeting. It is not, and I repeat, it is not to sell them something. If you're making contact with a customer on the initial time, you're making contact with a prospect, and it's the first time you contact them, make sure you know and you remember and you keep in your mind that it is to set up an appointment. It is to get you an appointment, not to get you the sale. Now, unless, there is a disclaimer, unless, right, you have a product or a service that you can sell, close, deliver over the phone or electronically, right there on the spot, right? If you don't have that type of product or service, you are not making this phone call or prospecting. You are not calling so that you can get the sale, so that you can get paid. You are calling just to get a qualified customer to say yes to meeting you. That is all you are doing, right? So it's extremely important that you understand that, and it's extremely important that you don't talk about essentially your product at all, right? You don't want to really talk about your product. You don't want to give them that juice. You don't want to give them that benefit of knowing what your product is, right? Why would you do that to yourself? You can't build value like that. You can't build passion either like that, right? So don't sell yourself short and give your product over the phone. Keep that confidence and set up an appointment and say, no, Mr. Customer, let's meet, right? Let's have that mentality like, no, we're gonna meet. I want to show you this in person. So it's extremely important you understand that. And the reason I say that, because like I said, this really hurts your chance of closing the prospect on an opportunity to meet. Because as soon as you give them as soon as you give them any information, as soon as you give them any of that, you're done. Your sale's closed. They're gonna make up their mind right there in that instant. Based off of the 2 seconds, they're gonna make up their mind. Instead of based off of real information, real facts, based off of real value that you've built, they're gonna make their decision like that, right? They're going to make their decision so quick as soon as you give them that information. And I know personally, because when I first started, I used to just babble and just give customers, all this information, just overload them with all the knowledge that I knew. And I just, overloaded them, and I thought it was going to build points and I was going to, build credibility by saying, hey, I know all this information and I have all this knowledge, and look what I've done, and look what I've been able to do, and blah, 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 all that. But what happened was I overload them with all this information, and then they're like, okay, give me a call tomorrow, Kevin, and we'll go from there. Thank you for all the information. I'm going to process it a little bit. I'm going to think about it. I'll give you a call. Thank you. And I'm like, all right, I appreciate you guys. And then boom, never hear from them again. Never ever hear from them again. Never get a message. Never get the courtesy of a call. Nothing, right? So, you have to remember that there's 3 parts you have to go through your process before you go for the close. And these 3 steps right now in this process of setting up the appointment, what you have to do first is build rapport. As soon as you get on with your customer, you have to build rapport. Once you build rapport, you have to find the problem or the need, right? You have to find the problem or the need, what they need, what issue are they having, right? And then the third one, you're the problem solver. You have to figure out the solution. You have to present the solution. You have to give them the solution. I'm not saying give them your product, give them the solution your product will give them. So your first step in making this phone call is to build rapport, but build rapport with the right person. Right? You can't just build rapport with whoever. You got to build rapport with the right person. You have to build rapport with the problem haver. Right? It's what we call the problem haver. This person is the problem that this person is the one that has the problem to the solution that your product brings. Right? This is the person that your product, whatever you tell them that your product solution is, this is the person that'll be the most beneficial. This is the person that they'll inspire to say, hey, you know what? I want to invest in this because it's going to help me on my problem, right? That's the problem haver. That's what the problem haver is. So don't ever assume, right? Don't get on the phone and just assume that you got someone on the phone. You get excited. You just assume, hey, you're so-and-so, right? How are you doing? And just go into it. That's the worst way to go about it, and it's that right there. You're gonna come off so salesy, you're gonna come off so pushy, and they're gonna be like, I'm not interested, don't want it, can't afford it, I'm good, thank you, I appreciate you, you have a good time, right? And it's like, it's one of those things that if you go in too eager, but then going back into, making sure you find the right person, it's, you ever go into an entire sales pitch and you give them everything and you kill it, where afterwards you're just like, oh man, you're over the phone, you're just like sitting back and you're like, yeah, I just closed that customer out. You gave me a presentation. They're like, oh, okay, that sounds good, but I'll let my mom know, I'll let my dad know. And you're just like, what? How old are you? 10? Oh my gosh. And you're just like, and in your head you're just like, seriously, what the fuck, man? I just gave my whole presentation to this person. I just gave my whole presentation to this. You're just like pissed, right? You're just like, oh, and you're just upset about it. But then, right, you gotta realize that that's your fault. That's not the 10-year-old's fault. They know not to be rude, right? If the parent raised them right, they know not to be rude. They're gonna hear you out. They're gonna take it. That's your fault. It's your fault for assuming. You have to take the initial steps, and you have to take that action as soon as you get on the phone, right? You have to take that action to make sure you find the right person and the problem haver. And as easy as just saying, because usually for most of you guys, for most of us cold calling, we're gonna have people we cold call. Nowadays we're not going through our phone books. Nowadays we're not just picking up random phones. Nowadays we got a CRM, we got a database that has customers that bought with us. We got manifest customers that have bought in the years. We got all these things. We got mining customers, all this good stuff for everybody. That now you usually have information that you call your customer. You usually have information before you call your customer. So just don't get too eager to just jump on the phone, and as soon as you get contact, you make 20 phone calls, you finally make contact, and don't get too eager to just give them your pitch. Take the initial step to make sure it's the problem haver, because if not, you're going to end up on the phone with a 10-year-old that can't give you any information. But hey, you know what, if that happens to you, take the bright side of it and say, at least you got to practice your pitch, right? But it gets me going to my next step of, like, if you have that information present for your customer, and you do have the benefit of having a database and a CRM of all your customers' information, be sure that you take the time to look at that, right? I'm not saying really prejudge it and look at the history and look at this and look at that, but if you have any personal information or just like general information, or their address, and figure out where they live, and kind of just look at the surrounding area, or just kind of like, hey, get familiar with what's around, a nice restaurant, a favorite restaurant around their house, just something like that, right? Because that gets into the same building rapport. Once breaking down building rapport, once you find the problem haver, this is where you start really like building rapport, right? Once you find the problem haver, boom, that's when building rapport starts, right? So that's when that's when it's going to help you, and that's when it's going to benefit you the most. If you take the time before you make any phone call to any customer, take a little bit of time, right? Take 10, 15 minutes to do a little bit of researching, right? With so much information, with so much access that we have now, 10, 15 minutes, we can get a lot of information. We can get a lot done in 10, 15 minutes, and just, like I said, if you have at least an address and have information of a customer like that, or a business like that, just as simple as figuring out the favorite restaurant around there, then the best restaurant around, or a memorable thing around there, or something that people go and visit, that way you have something to talk about, something to initially start making the customer feel comfortable. Because if all of a sudden you know about things around the area, you know about things that they're used to, and you know them by name, and you're calling them saying you're a personal consultant, right? All those things are psychological little key points that you're hitting the customer's subconscious mind, right? You're planting those seeds in the subconscious mind, and getting right past the conscious mind, getting right past the gatekeepers of the conscious mind, and hitting the subconscious mind directly, and letting them know just comfortable, right? You're giving them comfortable keys. You're saying, the favorite restaurant that they probably go to every day, or you're calling them by name, personal consultant, right? You're building this other level of comfortability. You're going from, being the telemarketer that's calling him, or being the salesperson that's calling him, to being a friend, someone comfortable, even though they have no idea who you are, right? They just psychologically start feeling comfortable with you, and that's really important when you're building rapport. When you're building rapport, you want to gain clarity of your customer. You want to gain clarity of your customer's lifestyle, your customer's problems, what your customer likes, what they don't like, because those are the points that you're going to want to hit when you're presenting your product, when you're presenting yourself, yourself when you're presenting your company. So that's a very, very important part when it comes to building rapport, getting to know your customer and getting comfortable with your customer and knowing your customer before you call, because then again, it just makes everything better. You seem more professional. You're going to be more confident. You yourself, within you psychologically are going to feel like you know this person. And like I said in my last podcast, about communication, it's like once you feel comfortable with your customer, every awkwardness and all of that just goes away. It's like talking to your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister. All of a sudden, conversation just comes out smoothly, and it's initially coming from being comfortable with them, right? So to kind of rewind a little bit is going to be, first step in your stages of the sale, you have to build a rapport. But before you even get into building rapport and you make that initial phone call, don't be on the phone with the 10-year-old, make sure that you find your problem haver. And after finding your problem haver, start building rapport by hitting the key notes of knowing your customer and knowing what they like and they don't like, and after doing your research and being able to get comfortable with them, right? That's the next step in building rapport. So, and then once you start, and that building rapport goes throughout the entire thing, right? So it's the place where you start. It's step one because it's where you start. But don't ever stop building rapport. Just because you built rapport, don't ever stop it. You're gonna continually go through it. But that's the other key point that I made in communication. You guys can go more into depth on that on the podcast, right? It was to where you can build rapport, but the reason it's only step one is because it wants to make it clear to you that you stop building rapport and start getting into business, right? But once you get advanced and you start getting the steps down, you want to know that you do build rapport throughout the thing, but that's where you start. Building too much rapport is going to kill yourself as well. So you want to start at building rapport and then make your customer comfortable. Once they're comfortable, keep going throughout the thing, once you build the comfortability, don't just kill it by being salesy, boom, 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 and start selling, right? Keep that patience, keep that same friendliness throughout the entire process. But once you build enough comfortability to where your customers agreeing, saying yes, shaking their head, giving you cues like that, right? Once you get into that, and you start building that comfortability, that's when you want to start finding the problem, right? Finding their need and finding out what it is that they're struggling with, where they're hurting, and you want to realize I need to figure out where I can help you. And you want to come about this so suddenly, but you want to come about this very aggressively, right? Because if you can't find the problem, you can't get to the next step. Right? So build comfortability, get comfortable, find the problem, right? By asking subtle things, right? By being polite, being friendly, smiling throughout the entire phone call, because the customer's gonna feel that. They're gonna feel that energy. They're gonna feel your energy coming through the phone. They're gonna feel that positivity. They're gonna feel good. So it's one of those things where, if just make sure that as you're building comfortability that you're finding the problem by continually being polite, continually being friendly, and like I said, smiling and having good energy through the phone, because once you build that comfortability and you start asking good questions that you've already, premeditated, and questions you've already written down, questions you already know you're gonna say, right? Once you start building those, once you have that comfortability and you go through about it with great energy, and you find you find that problem through your well-organized questions, that's when you're gonna take it to the next level, and that's when you'll actually start reaching, being able to close a customer on setting the appointment, or close a customer in general, right? Because if you take these points and take them into your communication in general through when you actually meet your customer, right? Right now we're going through prospecting, cold calling, but the same information we're going through right now about communicating and feeling comfortable is the same thing you can do with the customer when you're in person. Because telephone sales, if you say, Kevin, I'm just not good on the phone, I'm really good in person, guys, it's the same thing. It should be easier for you. I started in door-to-door sales and phone sales only, right? I spent 2 years as a production manager, only phone, nothing else, right? Phone, and I had multiple employees and multiple subcontractors and all this, and salespeople and customers, but it was all just phone-based. So when I was able to perfect my phone skills, and I was able to do that, and then I was able to learn about how to read people, right? Because once you get really good at phone skills, you'll be able to read people's cues and people's tonality, right? And you'll be able to almost imagine people's facial expressions just by their tone, their cues, and the way they're responding to you, right? You'll be able to almost imagine how they're feeling and imagine what they're feeling right now, and imagine their facial expressions, and imagine their body movements and how they are, right? You're gonna be able to imagine all those things once you really like focus into the cues, and once you really get good at your phone skills. And it's right now we're going over prospecting and cold calling, but it's something that you guys can transition and implement into your person-to-person sales, because person-to-person sales, you start picking up actual body cues. So when you match tonality and body language, you almost control you control the customer, right? You almost control the entire situation, from meet and greet to thank you and I appreciate you for doing business, right? So again, that was just an off-point keynote that we're going over prospecting and cold calling, but it is something you guys can implement and take into your person-to-person sales. So going back into the phone, telephone sales. So I think it's an important thing to say after going over all that information, that you always, throughout this entire thing, you'll only be successful. You will be successful if you do everything, but you have to be confident about it. You have to be enthusiastic about it. You have to be excited about it. You have to feel good. You just, like I said, you have to just be giving, what's up? You have to be giving that energy through the